Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Neville. I'm a writer from Oxford in England. And my own warm greetings to every one of you who have joined the programme this afternoon, and a warm welcome back to those who are here this morning. My job is to introduce to you two deeply spiritual individuals. We had a sort of chat show this morning. This afternoon it'll be a little bit more of a conversation because it's just the two, but they're sharing on the topic of living in the world of everyday life and living a life with God. So the two aspects which so often people feel, how could you do both? You've either got to be like a hermit or a sannyasi or a nun, or you can be out in the world. But these two are both actually living a life with God, but very active in the world. So it's going to be my great pleasure to invite them both to join me. First, please welcome Bishop Philip Huggins. Bishop Philip Huggins, President of the National Council of Churches of Australia, which is an interreligious body itself. Bishop Philip is an Anglican, has been an Anglican bishop for 20 years or so, but he is extremely interested in interreligious work. So welcome, Philip. And secondly, I would like to invite you to give a warm welcome to BK Jasmin, who for nearly 25 years, Jasmin was a pillar of the Global Retreat Centre at Oxford, England. GRC was the first retreat centre opened by the Brahma Kumaris, and it set a pattern that has been followed all over the world. So Jasmin is a real pioneer. Thank you for joining us, Jasmin. So I'd like to, I think, begin with you, Jasmin. I know that you're not used to coming up on a stage, especially in front of thousands of people, but but it's very, very nice to see you. You see, she has, I don't know if the camera is picking it up, but she has a most wonderful, infectious smile. And her pealing laughter has echoed around the retreat centre for decades. So even through that, she serves a lot. Jasmin, you came to the Briquets and actually decided to dedicate your life to this movement when you were 17. You were in Germany. Jasmin speaks English better than most English people, by the way. She really does. But she's from Germany. That was her native language. And it's one of the most wealthy countries in the world, and yet you came in for this life of simplicity. What was it that brought you at such a young age as a 17-year-old?
Actually, I was on a very intense spiritual search, I guess, from very young age. So I started really from, I don't know when, but young age. I was reading a lot between the age of 10 and 16. Spiritual books, and so I don't know, there was a deep yearning inside of me, I guess, you know, just this, I'd always believed in God, and I have memories actually even of my childhood, of remembering God when I had any problems, and speaking to him a lot in my mind, so that was always very natural to me. But then I needed more clarity, I was thirsty for knowledge, for understanding myself, and for understanding the world, understanding why the world is the way it is. And so I read a lot, and I actually came to the understanding of God being light. I understood that from a young age, and I believed in reincarnation also. Again, this was a result of studying and thinking very deeply. And then, in fact, what led me to the meditation was, I remember going to school, and because I believed in reincarnation and in karma philosophy, I was very aware of my impact, the impact of my thinking, that if I had a negative attitude or outlook about other pupils, that, you know, that's really creating bad karma. I was aware of that. And so I remember thinking I need to change this, but I didn't know how to do it. So that's what led me then to thinking meditation would be the best. So then I actually looked into various different paths. I went to different groups. And then somehow I came to the BK Center in Hamburg. And yeah, you know, it's like when you find your right place and you know this is it. This was the way it was. It was really instant recognition. And in fact, I remember the first day when I went, they were showing pictures of India, of the headquarters of Madhuban. And I was very deeply touched, and I thought, I have to get to this place no matter what. So then I asked the sisters at the center, you know, how can I get there? What do I have to do? And so that's how, you know, I got into it. And I felt instantly at home. I knew this is it. There was no doubt. This is my place.
It really surprises me to hear that even at the age of 10, or maybe even before that, you had a feeling that there was a God, that there was a need for that God in order to help us to live with better values and better qualities. That surprises me because, as I mentioned this morning, my own story was rather different. I turned my back on all of that in my teenage years and actually decided that science was the best way forward, until I discovered a lot later that that led to a kind of dryness in life, that spirit is a very important part of reality. But you got it so young, and you actually understood in reincarnation too. You had a feeling that there's more to us than just the brain and the body.
In fact, the reincarnation, that was an interesting one, because although I believed in it, I was convinced that it's true. I always thought, well, if you see, the way it's usually explained is that we are, you know, life is like a school and we incarnate to learn, and so we keep developing. You know, like they have this idea of you start at a low level of development and you work your way up. You know, your journey, your spiritual journey takes you upwards in your development. And I always thought, well, if that is the case, why is it that the world is getting worse in a way? What I was seeing around me was that there was more sorrow. And so that was the one big question I had. So that was a big question in my mind. And then going to the center, that had a huge impact on me when I actually finally understood that, you know, we actually came from a place of perfection. We are perfect beings, and we've just lost our energy, like a battery, you know, that energy is getting used up.
Right, this is a very special understanding, isn't it? That,
yeah.
As Harry, the musician, was demonstrating this morning with the spinning discs, that he called it spinning the discus of self-realization. This idea that we actually begin our journey in a state of perfection and lose that, but can then regain it. So let me ask Bishop Philip, firstly, thank you. It's really great that you should be in a conference like this to be representing the Christian tradition, that you've come from Australia to join us. I know you've had a passion for interreligious dialogue and cooperation. Could you tell us why you see that as so important?
Thank you for the kindly welcome. Look, we are one human family on a tiny planet in a vast universe, the end of which is still to be found. And the more we live out of this reality of being one human family and approach one another always with the feeling that we've got something to learn from one another, then we can make some progress. Here we are, down on the ground in this astonishing gift of life, and every day really is a complete miracle, and we're gifted with the opportunity to be part of making God's beautiful plan for the whole creation come to its complete fulfillment. I mean, what an adventure that is that's gifted to us, this one human family on this tiny planet. And down on the ground, in my case, with the kangaroos and the kookaburras and the koalas, all of whom we want to make sure are cherished on the journey to the completion of God's beautiful vision. We have a lovely parallel already listening to Jasmin and her awareness of God is light. And in the New Testament, towards the end, is the same understanding. God is light, in whom there is no darkness at all. So the common ground just encourages us to build friendship, build partnership, and make this beautiful vision of the divine completely true.
I love hearing you speak that way, Bishop Philip. It's beautiful, isn't it? You know, one of the reasons that it touches my heart, especially now, is that in those early days of my atheistic, materialistic outlook, I had a distaste for the way people had used the name of God to kill and discriminate and so forth. So somehow I threw the baby out with the bathwater, to use that rather unpleasant expression. But now I really understand that God is something of ultimate truth, and that there is a nourishment if we can find ways of connecting with that truth that we all need.
Yes, of the many things that are completely useless in the universe, religious competition is one of them.
Right. Right, yeah.
And in relation to how you said, hearing the way God's name was used in a divisive fashion, I think really points us to one of the very simple things we can all do to kind of cultivate a greater awareness of the divine presence. And that is for us to simply say the name or the names of God that we find speak to our heart with as much reverence and love in our tone of voice as we can possibly muster. In a way, it's a sufficient aim of a life to be able to say the divine name with complete reverence, holiness, and love. Tone of voice, you know, is so powerful. We're so influenced by the quality of tone of voice. It's part of why this gathering has been already so uplifting. All the tones of voice have had harmony and sweetness and goodwill to them. And if we, in our daily life, it's a simple thing really, just try to make sure that our tone of voice when we're talking to people in shops, on the phone, in our whatever our public activities are, if our tone of voice is full of love and readiness to learn from the other and a generosity of spirit, it's transformative. And, you know, if Charlie said before, we've got to start this grassroots movement. And if we're going to have people in media and people in high political office addressing each other with deeper respect and the opportunity to think that something good can come from the other, we've got to model it in our tones of voice with one another.
I think Jasmin will very much relate to that. Your role has been not out there with bringing religions together in quite the same way, although you've hosted people from every kind of background at the retreat centre. But I know that one of your skills that I've seen develop in you over the years has been to speak to people in ways that win cooperation, because you've had quite a big team working with you to keep the whole place in order, to all the different roles that you played there. Teamwork requires careful handling, otherwise people will take umbrage, they will not cooperate, they will dig their heels in, there'll be arguments. But I've seen you really develop the ability to win people over and make them cooperate. How has God come into that, or is that just something you learned in a practical way?
Well, probably both. I mean, it was a huge learning field for me, and I'd say probably relationships was probably my main learning while I was at the retreat center, because actually I was working with a lot of different, vast variety of people, very different personalities. Some people are very, they work very slowly but very thoroughly, some very fast but, not very accurate. And it helped me really to develop a lot of compassion and understanding for people, because I guess I do have deep love for people in general, and so whoever I was working with, I was always very concerned that they should feel loved and looked after. I don't like treating people like machines, and it's like, this, whatever we do together, we should do it as friends, rather than feeling that, I'm coordinating and I'm, making you do something. And so I actually always gave this priority to develop a friendship with everyone. And with regards to how that relates to God, I think it's just, I have always had an experience of God as love. And even before, I mean, even as a child, actually, I always believed that God is pure love. And so when I came into this spiritual knowledge, when I started the practice of meditation, I actually had the experience of that. And so when you feel totally, completely loved, and you know someone believes in you and sees the highest in you, you know, you want to do that for others in a way, and you feel that you are in a way you're an instrument in a way, working with others. So you want to share with them that love, basically, you know, the love that you feel inside, that you've received. And yeah, I must say it's one of my favorite qualities is love, compassion. It's something it has come quite naturally. Yeah.
Bishop Philip, I could see you relating to how Jasmin is speaking there. And one of the great strengths that I think is generally recognized about the Christian tradition is that it speaks very much of God as love. Sometimes says God is love, and Jesus as his sacrifice, his love for humanity that led him to give his life. How does that connect with everyday life for you? Because you've spoken of how bringing good qualities into your relationships, speaking kindly and tone of voice is important, but are you actually actively remembering God or using God to help you have that kindness in your relationships?
Well, for myself, I'm a practitioner of kind of mantric meditation, in my case, the Jesus prayer. Jesus have mercy, which I've been practicing for some 40 years. And it's one of the beautiful things about coming to here is I've been able to practice my Jesus prayer in the midst of the retreat, the Brahma Kumari retreat, in the silences and in the guided meditations. You know, it's been so beautifully inclusive. And that, you know, that prayer, I think, like other mantric prayers, what its benefit is that it helps us to make good use of the gift we have of self-awareness, this capacity that we have to be aware, objects of our own awareness. And I can be speaking, people can be listening to what I'm saying, and they can be thinking something else simultaneously. It's an amazing gift to be able to do that. But we know, don't we, that what we think about shapes what words we use, what actions we take, and over time the pattern of our thinking therefore shapes our character and our destiny.
Right.
So being able to really be attentive to what we let ourselves think about is crucial because of where it leads. And mantric meditation, in my case the Jesus prayer, I prayed it before coming here to try and make a decent contribution. I pray it before meetings, I pray it going around through the day, and it comes into my heart as I'm doing things, and it just helps me when I become aware that I'm thinking things that are not going to go in any good direction, trying to always choose the thought that's the truest, the most beautiful and the kindest. When your thinking's not like that, then in my case, the Jesus prayer, praying that prevents me losing that self-consciousness and descending into thinking and action that I do not want to do.
Fantastic. That is really practical and understandable. Would you like to close our little session with something from that prayer, or with us? You have something in mind that you could offer us?
I'm going to sing you a little song, which, as they say about politicians doing crazy things, is courageous. But you've got to help me, and by humming.
Oh.
So if you could all begin to hum, and I'll sing you this little Jesus blessing song. You ready with the humming? 1, 2, 3. May the long time sun shine upon you. All love surround you. And Jesus' light within you guide your way home.
Thank you both so much for those insights you've shared.